Hello and welcome back. Today we are continuing our Venice into Carthage run here in EU5. Last episode we did do some fighting with Hungary, Bohemia, Austria, France, Castile, and the Mamluks all simultaneously. We have a big enough army that we can do this type of thing, and so we resolved a really big war, and now we are going to be kind of picking up the pieces and doing a lot of management stuff as it relates to some things. I think I wanted to highlight a little bit just how wrecked they have been. In terms of their peak, France was at, Castile was at around 8 million, and we've knocked them down a couple pegs twice, and now they are sitting at just over their starting kind of amount of pops. I think is this their starting? No, this is their post-Black Plague pops. They are sitting at 3 million pops remaining in all of Castile, kind of holding on to their highest pop region, which we didn't annex, and France was above 20 million at the start of the war. Now they are considerably below, and a big part of this has been just taking out their levies and also taking a whole bunch of slaves. When we kind of started last episode, we had something to the tune of like 500 million slaves. Now we have 2.8 million slaves, and we're freeing slaves to some extent. I think that we had started that episode with less than or around 20 million pops, so we very nearly doubled it. We're somewhere around here in just like a couple decades, really having this enormous come up, and we are going to be handing some of this back to our vassals though, or creating vassals, this type of thing. And the reason being is we are trying to keep everything cored / integrated, and by feeding it through vassals and then annexing those vassals, that now gives you cores. It used to just give integrated, but we're going to be taking a bunch of stuff directly ourselves. Like we have been working on taking all of the Nile Delta ourselves, because this would create a very powerful subject if we gave it to a subject, and we just kind of don't want to spike a powerful subject because we're having difficulty maintaining loyalty of subjects by virtue of them having a really big modifier for strength of vassals relative to us. You see minus 71. This is with the army still mobilized, and so we will want to do that. We will want to do a ton of stuff, though, before we unpause. The reason being is the coalition as it stands is very small. We want to deck into this coalition before a bunch of other people join it, because otherwise it'll be a really big coalition and we'll have to fight this big-ass war. And if we deck on the small coalition and then resolve that war, that will brick the subsequent coalition. And so we will have time to improve relations with the likes of Munster, who are just barely within coalition range. And this is most of the HRE guys. I don't think we want to annex anyone to the HRE yet. I think we want to reel back the antagonism in the HRE, look to play a little bit slow, and actually not do anything in terms of taking the HRE, fighting the HRE, this type of stuff. And so by decking immediately, we will avoid fights with a lot of the HRE guys who we otherwise would have to fight. If we take a look here, you see a lot of these guys are not really that high antagonism. Is certainly enough to reel it back in. I guess the Palatinate is a kind of outlier, although it depends how much we can improve relations with them. French Comte is an outlier a little bit because they do a French culture, and we just Armageddon France and Castile here, both at plus 1k. So we want to do that before we resolve anything. If we go to fight anyone, it's probably going to be Bulgaria, England, or even someone further overseas, something to this effect. In terms of managing the antagonism, other than the Ottomans, who we just want to full annex. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing at the outset. And we haven't really talked through a lot of our kind of actions in terms of integrating and managing this kind of post-war situation. So I think we'll focus a little bit on that kind of to kick things off. So let's start with this land to the east. One thing we are very cognizant of is areas, just in general, because we are going to be able to operate on the basis of entire areas when it comes to integrating and culture flipping. And so we are going to want to, for all of the Lower Egypt stuff, we're actually going to want to keep this ourselves. You can see all the red stuff is the recently conquered stuff, so this we will leave alone. But this, we want to use our subjects to integrate it, and so we have kind of two subjects here, Jaffa and also these guys here. who we don't know because their name is absolutely butchered on the map. I guess it's T. Generally speaking, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get all of the coast. We can get a lot of proximity to the coast in general, and you can see it hasn't updated yet, the map. And because of that, we want to keep the coastal guys easy to annex in Jaffa, and so I think we're going to feed this to T. We could also make another subject, but for every subject you make, it's additional strain effectively on your diplomats. We don't want to make anyone too big, but this isn't a lot of pop overall for them, and so it's not too big a concern. If they're really big, it will be a lot more for us to annex them, because you do get a discount slash penalty based on your size next to them. So we're trying to keep the guys smaller so we can get a really big discount. You can see much smaller is increasing our speed by a lot and helping to override the fact that we're doing multiple annexations simultaneously. So we will feed to this province here, and they will be able to integrate it themselves. And so that resolves a little bit of this. We will do a similar thing over here with these guys, where we will feed them this province or this pair of provinces. They are getting to the point where they're a little bit on the big side, and so we will probably annex them and then create another subject and get a little bit more of the coastline for ourselves. And here we are going to be feeding these provinces. I think there's quite a few provinces to whoever already kind of owns a bit of the province, because they will use interactions on provinces. And so they will use stuff like improve province or dev province. They will culture convert provinces. They will religiously convert provinces. And so generally speaking, we do want to give full provinces over. And so we are kind of keeping an eye on that. So we see Harput is already kind of with these guys a little bit. These guys are starting to get pretty big. They are already given scootage or scutage, however it's pronounced. And so what this is doing is preventing them from joining our wars, which is what we want, because when they levy or raise a huge army, buy mercs, this type of stuff, this will hurt our penalty towards loyalty from the result of having these guys be big. And so we want to avoid that, we can kind of give them a few more lands, but we probably don't want to give them anything more than this. And over here, we actually took this from Georgia kind of at the outset of kicking things off, and I think we're going to release this as a subject here. This isn't a full province, but I think that this is a little bit different than the coastal stuff. We're going to leave the coastal stuff to ourselves. We're going to slowly peel this off of Trebizond, just taking locations, because Trebizond is a vassal, or Trebizond is a march, not a vassal, so we can't annex them. So we're going to want to slowly seize territory from them, probably generally focusing on the little better resources first, or highly urbanized areas, but let's take a little bit of this off them. Don't want to cause discontinuity for their stuff, but what we're going to do over here is we're also going to create a subject. We're going to do a custom subject, because I don't think there's a historical subject out there, and we're going to give them this province. We're going to make them a vassal, because we want to annex them eventually, and we won't belabor kind of the decision here, but in general, would normally try and kind of give medium to high stats on Diplo and Admin, and War to some extent, but that's going to be a new subject, and they're going to integrate this territory for us. And so that way we won't have to do it ourselves. We don't want to use too many integrate interactions, even though we've started to use a few of them over here. But that's kind of what's been... Oh wait, we also have this. Let's take a look what province this is in. We see that it's a couple provinces, but we're going to give some of the... Actually, I think all of this is going to Tokat. Just going to double check the province here. Tokat already has some of Bozuk, and so we will give them some of that as well. And you can see we have also kind of made these subjects in a way that is either they have long strips of coastline or they're interior, and we're going to annex the interior guys last. This guy is kind of an exception because he has like one snippet of coastline and is interior, but for the most part, we're going to annex all the middle guys first, so making the middle guys smaller so that we can get this bonus is going to be more important, and by the time we get to the interior guys, we will be a little bit bigger, and so we'll be going after the Ottomans, and that's kind of our situation handled a little bit over here. Let's move on. We're going to feed all of this to Serbia. Serbia is a little bit big, probably have made Serbia a little bit bigger than they need to be. We're going to double check that we don't have any provinces or locations that have already been cored before handing them over the province, otherwise we'd want to do individual locations, and I do think Serbia is pretty close to the point where we want to annex them, so we're probably going to improve opinion with them and then look to annex them, but make sure that we kind of conserve our diplomats a little bit right now and make sure that we have enough to kind of do the moves that we want to do, so we won't do that immediately. And then we have Transylvania, and this is kind of an important play pattern where we want to create historical subjects because when they have a bunch of stuff, they will have all of these claims, and they will create spy networks and create CBs, and then we can use the CBs. And this gives us a lot of flexibility because we can declare wars immediately. We don't have to wait for Parliament CB. Even though we could use Threat and War to use the Parliament CB, being able to declare stuff exactly when you want it is really, really useful. So we'll release Transylvania as a vassal, and then we will feed them the province that we had taken, which this here is a gold province. That's why we had taken it. And so they are going to have, if we look at the integration map mode, this isn't going to be integrated. They'll integrate it, but the rest of these will be cores, and so they will create claims on all of this. And just to kind of highlight this idea is this coalition here that we have brewing is going to get really, really big after we unpause. If we had to wait for Parliament to get a war or a CB on the Ottomans, that would be annoying because we would have a much bigger thing that we would need to fight. Because we have the likes of our subjects here, do we see which subject is giving this CB? No, we don't, but we have several subjects that have kind of claims on Ottoman land, and because we have this, they have made CBs, we have this available to us right now. So we can do this before we unpause. And the presence of having this before we unpause is going to allow us to avoid unpausing and then 1 million people join the coalition. If we had to wait for our parliament, 1 million people would join the coalition, and we would either have to declare a no CB war, or we would have to tolerate basically fighting the entire HRE, kind of for no reason, because we're going to fight the Ottomans, and then we're going to toot it, boot it, hit it, and quit it, and not really be decking on anyone who is in the coalition for some time, until we can improve relations on a bunch of them out of there. So that is kind of one of the significant aspects of the Transylvania thing. Even though we can get good CBs from the Parliament using the threat and war interaction, just the flexibility and having them on hand is really, really nice. Also, we don't need to use our resource in terms of support in parliaments to be able to do this, and instead we just have this for Transylvania immediately. Okay, regarding Germany, we have been slowly feeding our vassals a little bit of territory, looking to not spike too much antagonism until we're ready to kind of turn the corner. We did get a core for this guy here in the war, and then we have kind of this last little bit of territory where I think we're going to make a new subject, and the reason we're not feeding to Biel is going to be kind of twofold. First of all, Biel, in terms of proximity, it's starting to get relatively low proximity here, so they're not necessarily going to be able to make that good a use of it. But also, generally speaking, it's pretty nice to feed your subjects all one culture. That way they have an easier time integrating stuff and coring stuff and making use out of the territory, and they have more income, which translates to you having more income. And so I think that's what we're going to do over here, where this is primarily Lorraine. And so the guy who we spit out is probably going to have culture Lorraine. And so we are going to create a new subject here, and we are going to get a vassal because we do want to be able to annex them eventually. We would normally kind of belabor this decision a little bit more, but it's not that big a deal, and so we will release them. And that's kind of like the Germany situation handled over here. For the West, this is going to be a lot of clicking, and so what we're going to do is we're going to handle it and then come back and explain some of our reasoning, but this is all the territory we have to manage and decide whether we want to keep it ourselves or whether we want to hand it out to subjects, and in particular looking to have claims on various areas. And so let's do that. Alright, as you can see, we created a lot of kind of smaller type subjects in terms of size, and let's kind of talk through a little bit some of the distinctions. So Portugal, we did release as a kind of nation because we wanted their claims. Eventually, we're going to release this march of ours, now that it's kind of served its purpose, and once we do that, Portugal will have claims on them, so we will be able to go after them. Similarly, Toulouse and Gascony and Poitou are all going to have claims, and so this is going to be nice as well, as it will also be nice that they start with a bunch of cores, and so this will help them out to integrate all of that stuff faster. Specifically, Nantes we didn't give over to Poitou because we want to kind of have some sensitivity towards area here as well, where Gascony is going to get Gascony and Guyenne, Languedoc is going to go to Toulouse, and this type of thing. Now, what we have chosen to keep, however, is kind of two areas that we are going to look to just manually integrate ourselves. in addition to kind of what we have down here, and that's because this is, relatively speaking, closer to what we have, closer to our capital, and so we will be able to get a decent amount of control here, probably not too much, but if looking at the areas, we have the kind of rest of Andalusia. To be fair, the rest of Andalusia, maybe we actually want to release this as a subject. Currently we have, we could release Cordoba, Jaén as a subject, but what we're going to do is we're going to keep Toledo, because we have convert area and we have integrate area coming on up on the horizon, and this is a huge area, so this means we can integrate it all ourselves very, very kind of nicely and efficiently. And to some extent we could have done this with Languedoc as well, but we wanted to have their claims and kind of that little bit of flexibility for fighting France, and so that was going to be kind of the thought, and we have kept this as well. This is because we would, in order to kind of be sensitive to areas, we would have to give this just its own singular location, and that makes it very vulnerable in wars if it's disloyal. We could give it scutage so it doesn't join our wars, but decided not to. Also, us integrating Castile manually by hand is on the kind of table, and so us having most of Castile, you can see some of it is in Leon's hands, is also somewhat reasonable kind of on this front as well. And so this is how we've chosen to divvy everything up. Now, we will probably want to give scutage to one or two of these guys before we deck our war, and it looks like we can only afford to do one. That way, we don't get too many people coming in on the war. And I think that Portugal's probably likely to be the strongest of these. You also may have noticed we did hand over complete provinces to this guy in the south of Algarve, making Portugal a little bit smaller because we didn't want Portugal to be too meaty. Also, Portugal does get released with... Oh, they didn't get released with this. I thought this was proper Portuguese clay. I guess not. We were expecting them to finish this colony. Now we'll probably finish this colony and hand it over to this guy or make a new subject, but I was under the impression that they were going to get their colony back. But that's kind of what we have cooked over here. Just kind of these smaller guys, because a big point of making them smaller instead of releasing one mega subject is it's going to be a lot more efficient in terms of integrating these guys. In theory, I think it is a bit faster to maybe seize territory off of these guys, but at a certain point, the integration speed from being larger than them is just better. So, like, these guys will integrate quickly. Catalonia has already been a subject for some time. We just handed them back most of their territory, and so we can't even go after annexing them relatively soon. We just have to improve relations with them. But we have a lot of things that are going to be needing diplomats, and so we have to be a little bit careful how we spend them. But this is how we've divvied it up in terms of what's going on over here. We will continue to keep this stuff, and so now we kind of have a couple areas effectively in the queue for getting integrated, continuing on with Granada right now as it stands. But actually, we're almost done with this province in Granada, so I think that we will be keeping... I think we will keep Andalusia and look to integrate the rest of Andalusia by hand, because it also is relatively valuable territory. We could get a decent amount of proximity to Sevilla, getting 70, so that means we'll get a decent amount to Cordoba and Jaén as well. And so I think we will manually complete this, because this is almost done, and then we're not going to have as many places as we might like to be able to use the cabinet action, because we're holding out on integrate areas. So we want to integrate this. That's getting kind of close to being integrated, and then we don't have too many spots we really want to integrate over the next 20 or so years before we get the integrate area interaction. And so I think I like that. I think that that seems pretty good. And then we will get, once we get integrate area, we will go for Toledo and also Lower Egypt with that. We could actually also just start integrating Lower Egypt. To be fair, we have already integrated like one of the provinces in it, and it doesn't have that many locations/provinces, just a few more, but we had planned on using integrate area here. But this is kind of how we've resolved this and are ready to kind of move on to the next step, having distributed all of these things that are uncored. This is another area we want to integrate. This is an entire area. Again, being sensitive to the area consideration at this point in the game. Not so important early, but later on it becomes very important. So we've started wars with the Ottomans, and this is where the war map mode starts to come in really useful, when there's a bunch of random people in a coalition and you don't know where they all are on the map. This map mode can be very, very useful because it'll allow you to kind of see what's up, and then we can kind of push troops in the direction that they need to go. We have a lot of troops. They're so horribly disorganized right now, and so this is something that we kind of care about, but we will organize these guys and send them in various directions, or we will not organize these guys, we'll just send them kind of towards what's going on, and then kind of reorganize later and format all of our troops. I think what we're looking for is like 18-18 stacks, where it's 18 infantry and 18 artillery kind of going into the next age, because age 4 is when cavalry starts to fall off, and then age 5 it's really going to fall off. But really kind of just wanted to highlight that this map mode, very useful when you're fighting coalitions of just a bunch of small people, because we can see exactly who's in the coalition here and exactly who we're fighting, despite it being kind of a lot of no-name countries that we aren't necessarily that cognizant of. Like here, for example, these guys, we don't have any sort of action to go through France, or we don't have any sort of access through France. But I think that what we could do is we can violate sovereignty on them, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe they're too big to violate sovereignty. Oh no, wait, these guys are just... Are they adjacent? No, they're not adjacent to anyone we're fighting, so this guy is probably not going to be fightable for us, unfortunately. Maybe we can get there, but I don't think we have access through France, and I don't think we can use the action to gain access that is violate sovereignty. Yeah, doesn't look like it. Unless... no. Not seeing it. So we're not even like really looking to go after these guys. We could subjugate them and feed them to our subject, which is actually maybe a decent shout, but man oh man, we do have kind of the next level forts for them, and so if we do want to do anything, we're going to need quite a few guys. Maybe we assault the fort, because you can see here we're running out of food. We don't have food access in these regions, but something that is nice is when we clip the armies, we're going to get this antagonism negative bomb, which is going to be useful for keeping these guys out of our hair. And so I do think because this is the Lorraine culture, we maybe subjugate these guys, feed them to our subject, and look to have them a little bit bigger. As far as the war goes, in terms of people we want to go after, not too many people. We are going to set up some of the stuff as automated, and you can see here the people beginning to join the coalition. So this is what we wanted to avoid. That way we don't have to chill until after this war. And then once we eat this here, we can't violate France's sovereignty, because I think that the reason we can't violate their sovereignty is because they're a GP as well, and so we can't do this, but we can violate these guys' sovereignty, which is very nice. So we are going to do that. We don't really care about their opinion all that much, and we will be able to get on these guys and probably just take a look at what's going on here. They are in another area, so we're probably going to feed them as a subject to Poitou, who can eventually annex them, and they will be the ones that worry about this. And you can see the coalition continues to grow, but we just won't deck into the coalition for some time here, and we have kind of arranged some of these armies on the fronts here. We do really want to make sure that no one sieges down this guy at all, because he is in the war with us and he is a little bit vulnerable. But other than that, I think we're in fine enough shape. We don't have food access though, so I don't know to what extent we want to go after Saxony as much as just kind of defend our regions, especially because we don't intend on taking anything from Saxony. We don't want to take anything, I think, in the north. We could take, if we wanted to take anything, it would actually just be the location of Lubeck very specifically, but we're just going to completely lack food access. We have just set some armies to automate siege here, which should be fine enough. And you can see more guys joining up on the coalition. So now our coalition map mode looks considerably worse, but we are going to be improving relations to get out of this. For the most part, these guys are, we're not so far gone with all of the Germans that it is impossible for us to rake back. It's really just France, Spain, Morocco, the Mamluks, and the Ottomans, who are about to be full annexed, that are like past the point of no return. One thing that's worth noting is the antagonism ticks differently for captured province versus subjugated people, and so we don't have a ton of subjugated antagonism, and it will decay in parallel. And so we're going to send a subjugation where we are going to feed that as a subject to our vassal there, as we mentioned earlier. So to clarify what we mean a little bit regarding this coalition, we have on most of these guys just an entire, like, 200 improve relations available, meaning we can just improve relations to push them out of this coalition on almost everyone in here, except for a few like Milan, Burgundy, Provence, Franche-Comté, and Galicia. These are the ones we can't push out, but we can just kind of look to go after these guys in one more. Well, actually, Burgundy is probably going to take a couple wars, and we would like to have claims on Burgundy, but I think that we might even have... No, doesn't look like we quite have a subject that has claims on Burgundy, but what we can do is we can deck into Milan, and we have subjects that have claims on Milan, and we have kind of had this for some time. Actually, Cremona is only Brescia, so we could actually annex these guys kind of relatively shortly here, and so they won't be a liability anymore, but this is going to be much more manageable. We'll just have to wait for the improved relations to go through. The Palatinate, I think, is actually just an unsolvable one. We're currently improving relations with us, but we have so much antagonism with them. I think the additional antagonism might be a consequence of the fact that they're emperor, something like this, and are a little bit difficult to deal with. But Württemberg, I think they're not even in the coalition. They don't even care. Austria is under 50, so they don't even care. We could get 50 more relations with them, despite having taken dirt off of them in kind of the war that we had just had. You can see we do have some amount of Austrian land if we look at this kind of map mode here. Alright, so we've spent some time reorganizing all of these armies. We were just going to do like an 18-18 one stack with the camp followers, but we have a bunch of cavalry left over. We had been using a bunch of units with 12 cavalry in it, and so we've just reduced this down to 6 cavalry. We maybe get the cavalry tech for the next stage. We maybe just leave these guys on heavy lancers and just kind of let that happen, because cavalry are kind of in the process of falling off. And we made a little bit of a mistake, a little bit of an oversight in terms of just how many subjects we've made. We've made too many, such that we can't annex anyone even when we are giving them additional loyalty. And so this creates kind of a little bit of a unpleasantness in, well, it's just very unpleasant. We have to make more army. The country strength of all vassals relative to overlord, this number is too big, and we have to bring it down by just adding a bunch of extra units, which is fine because we can support this. We are currently losing units, but we have, oh man, our maintenance. So here's what we're gonna have to do. We are going to have to lax in the way we have been approaching the creation of additional manpower buildings. What we've been doing is if it's under, if it's been 80 plus control, we've been adding manpower buildings. And we've been doing this kind of aggressively. We're going to have to start doing this with anything that is over 70 control. We're going to mass build barracks there, and then we're going to also do the exact same thing with training fields. Anything that is going to be actually, we don't even care if it's like any of this stuff, but anything that is 70 plus control, because control does throttle how much manpower you get. We don't want to be building in a place with like 40, 50 control, paying the full maintenance and this type of thing, and we are just going to add a ton of manpower buildings. We're going to have a pretty big build off as well, just in general, but this is a kind of nice way to add a bunch of manpower buildings, and so this is going to be several, I think, 1,000 more manpower, and we're just going to look to add a bunch more. We have a bunch of pieces of armies here, kind of out and about, that we have to form up, and what we're going to do is we're going to recruit onto these so that we have one kind of standardized unit. I think that for all these units also we might just add a second camp follower slash auxiliary units, because we are starting to run into some food issues, especially with the new changes where you don't automatically get food access through people who are neutral, which makes fighting the HRE a little bit annoying because you bring your unit through and they just completely run out of food. So So I think we'll make these adjustments, and we're going to look to kind of spend a whole lot more on building as well. We're also building another navy to transport guys around, except for I think we're just going to park this navy right here and just have it be the permanent bridge between these two to kind of facilitate and make easier the kind of moving guys around on the horizon. As far as wars go, we are planning on not decking until we get this here. We do have a claim on England, but I think that we want to try and figure out, well, actually, if we're at war, we can mobilize conscripts, and this can maybe push this out. If we have enough people who have scootage, this will actually be net positive for us on this front. But I think we're going to try and resolve this and focus domestically for a little bit. So we're busting out a few cheeky things in terms of what we can do to alleviate this subject disloyalty. Part of it is going to be based on their income, and part of it's going to be based on their standing army. To the extent that we can expand the standing army, we are trying to do so. But for the income, we are allowed to downgrade their locations, and some locations are just making gobs of money and also don't really have that great of things. These guys don't have any level 2 buildings. It's not that big a deal. This is letting them have a standing army for the Ottomans. And so what we're going to do is we're going to downgrade their capital. Which is going to turn it into a rural location, which will, they were kind of really up on the money. I think this 459 is before the month tick here, and so if we let the month tick happen, the 459 should come down considerably, and the 2600 should also come down considerably. We are hoping. If we let the tick come through here, and we see that, hey, it's been reorganized, they're down like 200 ducats in terms of their tax base. And we did this with Brescia a little bit too. We did this with Fez a little bit, looking to kind of downgrade some of the bigger cats that are going to be vassals. We are probably going to take a closer look at Portugal, and by doing this, we can make it so that our subjects in the aggregate are more loyal and have less of a penalty. This was over 100, now it's down to 75. We'll continue to downgrade some buildings, but also expanding our own economy is going to make their economy smaller relative to ours, and so I think we're going to have to take like a deep breath. This has been at 1 million, but it's way over 1 million. It just visually just shows 1 million, and we're going to have to expand a ton of production buildings. Just all over the place. And so the way that we're going to approach this is going to be that we are going to we're going to search one market at a time, and we're going to look, hey, is there really profitable opportunities for this building in this market? And we're going to do this one at a time for our level 2 buildings, and specifically sort by, hey, what's the most profitable? And then try and investigate, why is this the most profitable opportunity that we have? Specifically tools, we did expand out a lot of the tools that we had almost at max level, and so this is one of the reasons why. We could take a look at Ferrara and diagnose why this is the best location, but I think it's just going to be because it's close to the market capital. There's no iron in Ferrara in this kind of place, and so this won't necessarily be the most efficient. We care a lot about how much control there is there and how efficient it is going to be per input, and so it's not necessarily the case that we want it in Ferrara. We could even want it in places that are in, well, I don't think we have anything that is going to be in that province. Do we? No, this is all in Tyrol. We ideally would want to expand it around the iron, but we still might. Anything that's over 1.5 will probably take a little bit of a consideration for here, or try and find places with particularly high control. Like our higher control places are going to be places that have a really good natural harbor, so we're gonna have decent control here. That's not in Venetia. Decent control here, and I think that we probably don't have too many buildings here, and we don't have too much going on here, which is the case. It looks like we have a bunch of laborers, right? Or actually, we don't have that many free workers, man. We only have like 471 peasants, and so maybe we even approach this a little bit like this in some of the markets, and this starts to take a while, right? But we look where has a ton of peasants, right? Because these are going to be areas that we could definitely add a bunch of stuff to, and we see some of the peasants are out here, but this is going to be some rural locations too, so maybe we even want to assign a hotkey to this, to be honest, because having to go through and try and compare what's going on, we see that there's a ton of peasants here, And okay, this place already has a tools workshop as kind of what it's featured in there. And so I think that I like the idea of one, kind of just capping this off, but two, just upgrading all the tools here, and this will be a 35 stack of tools, add a bunch of tools. And we are going to do this kind of for, again, every single industry that's a level 2 industry. Just see, can we build it really, really profitably in this market? If so, where? And then try and identify what's going to be the best in terms of a confluence of having the input goods of the RGOs, having a lot of control, and having a lot of market access. Market access being the least important one, even though it increases the tax base the most. We care a lot more about control and inputs. That way we are really efficient per input we use, because overall there will be negative downward effects on our economy if we build in low control areas, and if we're not efficient per input, because an extra production efficiency is going to be helpful, but there's not really negative effects if there's less market access. You just produce less of the good, and it's not that big a deal. So this is what we're going to be doing. Also, specifically, we're going to be doing this for the Carthage market, the Napoli market, Venetia, Genova, Alexandria, Athena, and kind of the Constantinople market. But right now, this market's in disarray, or these markets are in disarray. And the reason being is we're probably deleting the Almeria and Valencia markets, but we don't want to do that until we own the Tortosa market. We've started to integrate Catalonia. The reason being is this is going to jank up our subjects' markets pretty bad. And we also want to own this market. I think we might even move the Almeria market. Maybe we have 2 markets down here, but we want to give the Sevilla market a little bit more breathing room, and we want to give the Tortosa market a little bit more breathing room. Also, the Tortosa market's a very kind of scrunched up, and then the Brujó market or the Lisboa market, or some of these like kind of more on the outskirts, we don't care about what's going on economically there as much as the areas we can actually have decent control, which are going to be kind of the areas obviously radiating out from Carthage, where we have decent proximity. So initially we were just doing tools in every single market, but we swapped things up and we're just going to just do this market by market, because every market's different in terms of what it needs, and we are doing this for every industry that is above 1 ducat in terms of what we can earn from it. And so what we are doing in the Venice market, just as an example here, we're going to be expanding 16 more paper, a little bit to top things off in regards to the tanneries. We're not making a huge amount, but if we see something that is going to benefit from production efficiency, or is in like the 20s already, or the 10s, or this type of thing, upgrading it to max level is going to be something we're interested in. Adding a little bit of dyes for the same reason, adding 1 saltpeter, just max stack, adding quite a bit of tools because that was one of the more profitable ones, adding some guns, adding some arms, and then a little bit on the paper, cloth, and books. And this is one of the things that is maybe worth emphasizing. We expanded out the cloth a whole ton already. It's not like we're going to get a bunch of new opportunities for expanding out the cloth. We've already saturated all of the demand, and we could super overbuild this, but we don't want to decrease in areas of high control. We don't want to decrease the price of cloth, because what's going to happen is that'll make the areas that have high control, which gets a larger proportion kind of contribution to the tax base, that'll make them less profitable. In theory, and this is kind of, we're not going to micro around this, but in theory, we should also try and specifically expand only in places where the dhimmi are getting a bigger share of the tax base, and avoid taxing or expanding in places where more of the split is going to people we tax less. So Pesaro, in theory, we just shouldn't build here because they don't have a big dhimmi estate. They have mostly burghers estate. We're not going to try and play around this too hard because this is a little gimmicky and janky anyways, but this is also something that is perhaps worth noting. But we're going to do this for every single one of our markets that we had just outlined a little bit ago. We've also gone around and urbanized stuff that can be upgraded, kind of doing a bit of a pass. We might miss a couple things here and there, and we're still kind of on the fence on whether we want all of these wheats upgraded. The food stuff has been an issue for us, and also a little bit on the fence on the lumber, which is why we haven't upgraded these. They're not exactly close to either the market capital or the capital, so not the biggest deal. But we're also going to kind of come around and look in places which have like 100 control, 95 plus control, and just poke around a little bit and see, hey, look, this place has basically no buildings, and so what's the most profitable thing we can build here, knowing that it has nothing going on for it and there's nothing here, and so we have several options. We have already kind of to some extent solved weapons in this market, but let's just take a look at what bonuses we are going to have here. So we're going to have cotton bonuses and dye bonuses, and we're also going to have livestock bonuses. And so to the extent that there's something profitable towards the top that can make use of these bonuses, like the tanning workshop, we're going to be looking to do that, because we are going to get bonuses from having the input goods of the livestock, and we'll kind of poke around. I think everything that's 100 control, we'll take a look. Doesn't have a lot of extra building slots. What is available here that we could make use of in terms of bonuses? We see that we have wool here. We see that we've already expanded out the cloth workshop, so not going to have anything too crazy. But with that said, this is maybe a good place to add another weapons workshop, this type of thing. We should probably take a look at the market and see just how much weapons workshops we currently have queued, because we added a whole bunch, and we see, hey, look, there's 148 queued. We probably won't have that profitable weapons workshop after that. And so just kind of doing this, especially in the places that just don't actually have anything going on quite yet, we're going to want to add something going on there. And it's almost never bad to build in places of high control if you're getting the production efficiency bonus. And so we see here we are getting firearms. We're already expanding out the firearms here, but this has already been expanded. It hasn't been expanded more because it's a city. And so we can expand it a whole lot more, and it has inputs in the form of saltpeter. And we're not going to get too many better options in this province than expanding guns, considering not too good in terms of what we have. We can do cannons as well, but the main idea is we're going to get a bunch of production efficiency on these guns, and it may not be the most profitable building, because I think it wasn't reading as that profitable, but actually no, this is decent profit per level on this. And so just kind of go around like this, make a little bit of a pass, 95 plus ish, mainly just kind of in the circle around the capital. So in order to build manpower buildings in locations, you do need to have them majority accepted culture. And so we've gone out of our way to accept Lower Egyptian. We're going to accept this eventually anyways, but manpower is becoming increasingly an issue. And to be fair, we don't have a lot of control here, so it's not necessarily the case that we want to expand out a ton of manpower, but this gives us the option to expand out a little bit here. And these places, especially like Alexandria, look at this, 23 barracks that we can build in Alexandria. This is going to increase demand in Alexandria, and Alexandria is also one of the few places that we already have cored up. Or it's not cored. Oh, will be next month, though, because we accepted Lower Egyptian. And so this is going to be quite nice here. They should get plus 15 control. We probably should have accepted them earlier. We're just waiting on the month tick. As you can see, also, lag is starting to be more of a kind of thing to be concerned about. But this is going to give us plus 15 control here. So this is going to move up to 80 control. And then we are going to get a level 23 barracks there, which is a lot of barracks levels. They scale the maximum levels scale linearly with pop. The first one is free, but after that, it's 100% pop. No dev, doesn't matter, it's all pop. And because this is such a high pop region, we really kind of want to get on getting this integrated, maybe considering how much we have overbuilt our army in order to keep everyone loyal. And so this might be something we want to do. Still going on with the colonization, we are adding a little bit. We are not fully kind of min-max microing this type of thing. We're just looking to have kind of decent-sized colonies in a bunch of different places. Well, you don't actually want your colonies very big. We kind of are just seeding them and letting them do their own thing and sending them a little bit of resources and building some stuff just to get them started. But what you kind of want or would prefer is if your colonies are really small, then what will happen is they will use a lot of cabinet actions, like Dev Province. And so you can see here, these guys have been an OPM for like forever, Havana. They just never started colonizing anywhere else, and that's why they're the highest development guys. And so, in theory, if you really want to like min-max some stuff, you should try and get to the point where they are just kind of small, and they dev up a bunch, because this will get you the most total resources in a location. Because if we take a look at the Chile and the potential levels, to be fair, why aren't they expanding the Chile. Okay, weird. But if we look at the potential levels, where they're going to be coming from, some of them are going to be coming from development. A very big chunk of them. Over half the flat levels are coming from development, actually. And so this is going to be quite nice. And so they're going to have more max levels than, you know, these ones that expand super wide. And okay, they get the dev growing a little bit, but they aren't using dev province at a bunch of locations. You can see when they were small where they were using dev province, but as they get more and more provinces, they are less and less likely to use dev province, or this has been our observation here. So we probably should have gotten this cabinet action a while ago. Uses admin ability, monthly inflation minus 0.2. We have around plus 200%, a little bit short of plus 200%. And so what we're going to use is this guy is going to decrease inflation by a little over 5%, which is going to increase our minting. Oh, it looks like 7.07%, which is going to allow us to up our minting quite a bit. Roughly a third of this, we are getting a total of 17, or 0.17. So roughly a third of our minting value as achieved by that cabinet action. This will slow down our integration, but to be fair, we kind of had some integration available, and so we're going to be doing that. We're also assimilating area here now, starting to turn it Venetian. Wow, that's absolutely hauling. And so these places will be cored up when they get integrated. A couple of these are kind of lagging a little bit, but we'll just leave them on the table for now and start to get some stuff going here, because as these guys will just naturally convert as long as there's some amount of Venetian that is seeded there, and they're not that far off, and so they will develop kind of over time. And so seeding Venetian here, at least initially, is kind of more important. To be fair, what it would probably be optimal is microing around everywhere, because you see there's going to be a lot of locations where we have 0 Venetian. It will not start converting until you get just a little bit there, and so in theory, for the assimilate area, what you would want to do is you'd want to come here, you'd want to like start the assimilation for like 10 seconds, just 1 month, let it tick once, and then you would have some amount of Venetian. That way you would start to get any amount of culture conversion working. We haven't been sweating it this hard, but you can see here after the month tick, which will take a little while because of the lag, we will have some Venetian in all of these locations in this province, or we should. I don't think we have enough. Yeah, we don't have enough negative modifiers to completely kick it out, and so this will work for us. You can see here we have a little bit of Venetian that we seeded but didn't really kind of expand out that much, and so this is why a lot of the places we just barely touched are continuing to convert longer and longer and longer. We just have to get the first little bit there, and so maybe we'll actually cycle this around a little bit, because I do think it is optimal. It's just kind of like a pain to do, because yeah, I think that honestly it should get seeded like a little bit, but that culture conversion in general should be a lot slower. But this is in theory like something you would want to do in order to make the absolute maximum out of what you what you can do. So I think we have, just taking a look, we have a couple places that aren't cored over here, and so just seeding Venetian and making sure that there is some Venetian here, which I'm not sure there is. Oh, there is a little bit of Venetian here, would be useful. Yeah. So with England, we took a little bit of a chip shot, taking 2 locations that we can eventually release into vassals. I'm not sure we'll do that quite yet, because we're already having difficulties maintaining the loyalty, but they're also OPMs, so maybe that's not too big a deal. Also, kind of have some text coming in where we're going to go for Mercury Patio, which plus 100% on gold and silver in terms of output. We already have 1 level. This gives us an additional level that we could put in. We're also getting some of our Carthaginian tech, wine output 30%, trade efficiency 2.5%, a couple of military techs moving in towards the galleon. The naval battery is the top tier for the naval defense building. I'm not sure if we'll build too many of these, because I do think that these are relatively expensive. I don't know if fortifications or defense is 20% maintenance or 100% maintenance, but we don't want to pay 100% maintenance on all that. But also we will be picking up artillery maintenance cost, which is quite nice. As far as I understand, this it does apply to the manpower cost of maintaining it as well, and this is kind of the thing we are squeezed on. We are getting increasingly squeezed. Well, actually, we're kind of in okay shape. We're only minus 700, so I think that we catch this before it hits the bottom. And we will be bringing these guys back home as well here, and we are fighting Morocco and Egypt yet again. Our subjects are disloyal, so we can't annex them, which is a little bit unfortunate. Was hoping that we could raise conscripts enough to make this happen, but it doesn't seem to be the case, and so that we'll try and finish this war maybe a little bit faster than we otherwise would. I don't think we can full annex the Mamluks either way. So probably look to just take a decent chunk out of them and set up for the full annex next war, because I don't think we could quite take everything. I think it's kind of close though, so maybe we would be in for a long war, but it'll take quite a bit of time, and we really want to get these annexes off, and so it might make a little bit more sense to just kind of go for something like this, just annex or leave that on the table, because it still has really high control. They don't have very much control over here, and they actually just moved their capital, which is kind of amusing. They moved it over here, and so this is going to be good for increasing the control in these locations, but we don't want to take a high control location just right off the bat, because you get a discount on taking stuff with low control, and so that's why we wouldn't want to take Cairo. Even though Cairo is an attractive location, we would rather take lower control stuff, and so maybe we'll take stuff near the new capital, which would be kind of amusing. They moved it because it was closer to a higher density of locations, and then we could just cut it off, take stuff on either side of the capital, especially with this here. We could take the Red Sea coast into here and then cut them off again. A bit of an awkward situation for us here as a result of timing. Castile, our truce with them is up. Our truce with France is not up. Our truce with France will not be up until next month. And on the month tick, Castile, there's virtually zero chance with 1,000 antagonism that they do not join the coalition. So they're 100% to join the coalition basically on September 1st, as far as I understand the mechanic. And so this leaves us in an awkward spot, because we cannot get a co-belligerent war against both France and Castile because we lack a CB on France. We could wait until September 14th if we had a CB on France. We could wait until the 14th and then deck France and co-belligerate Castile and just fight the coalition. The coalition's basically a non-factor at this point, but it's going to ramp up and it's going to get bigger. And we kind of want to get to the point where pretty soon Castile's going to be out of the picture, and we're just like left in this very awkward spot. We know we want to fight Castile specifically, and so, okay, we could declare Castile, and we could just not co-belligerate France. And this is what we were leaning towards. And we also would pull both Provence and Milan out of the coalition, which will break the coalition. It is unfortunate that France is an ally of Castile, and there's not a way for us to get in on France without, or get on Castile without France, because otherwise we would just break the coalition and then separate war France at a later point in time. Maybe when we get a Parliament CB or something like this. Or maybe when Gascony and Toulouse stop being asleep at the wheel. In fact, actually, there is something we didn't check, which is, do we have a CB against their subjects? Because this would change things quite a bit. And Gascony can make a CB against these guys, and so it's entirely possible that they did, but... oh ho ho. Ho 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 ho. Ho ho. So what we can do here is we can wait one month for the 14th, and then co-belligerate Castile, which Castile's going to join the coalition, so this will call in the entire coalition, but again, the coalition's not that big, and we could run back that big-ass war that we had, where we fight Austria, Bohemia, Hungary, and also the coalition on top of this. We could also co-belligerate pretty comfortably Hungary, and look to take some stuff off of them. I think that's kind of the only one where the co-belligerate makes a lot of sense, and we just double co-belligerate here on Castile and Hungary. Look to take big chunks off of both. We'll actually have a little bit of a think, considering that we have a claim on this, and so we can actually use France's war. But I'm not sure we want to fight this mega huge war. The other war where we were thinking of when we kind of introed this idea was that we were just going to do this. and have this be the war, in which case we're not fighting Austria, we're not fighting Bohemia here. It's a little bit more contained, and we go off of both Castile and Hungary, and we look to turn Hungary into kind of a new front where we are going to probably max antagonism them, considering they're at 179 anyways, and so taking anything off of them is liable to make them coalitionable, and so if you're going to in for a penny, in for a pound, and so we'll have a little bit of think what's best, actually. Alright, I really actually don't know how the AI behaves in this particular situation, and since I don't know and I don't have an intuition, we are going to be safe scumming this. The thing that I'm unaware of, we're probably going to improve relations with Hungary here, but I'm unaware of if this coalition gains France and Castile, will they deck us? I think the answer is no. And if the answer is no, I think what we should do is we should actually just wait. Because we could deck on Hungary, and we could co-CB both Castile and France anytime we want. They will be a co-belligerent. Right? And then also France, of course, co-belligerent. So we would get the war that we want, this big, huge war. But we don't really want to fight this yet, because we want to integrate some of our subjects and get to the point where we can fight a war while simultaneously integrating subjects. And we're like really close to integrating Algeria and a bunch of other people. And so we really want to get these integrations in, and we can't do that if we're at war. So here's the thing. I think if they are going to deck us, if this coalition does deck us, the best course of action is to deck Hungary right now, co-CB Castile, and then call it a day. Or wait a month, wait for the truce for France to be up, and deck Hungary right now, and co-CB France, and also Castile, and then fight the mega coalition. Probably the latter. We're going to try and fade this, fight it at a later date, and get ourselves some integration on. If we get decked on, we're going to reload. This is more of an experimentation rather than like trying to hardline exploit it. If we were playing tight or what have you, we would just deck right now. But I want to kind of have information of, is this past the threshold where they like decking you? And I don't really know, and I would like to discover this, and so that's why we are kind of committing to the safe scum, potentially. But maybe we just get through it and there's no declaration, in which case, okay. Just to be clear, the reason why we don't want to just deck into the coalition and like fight all these members like this is because the way that this works, they join the war, but they're not a co-belligerent, so everything has enormous increased war score cost against them. And this is not very good. Also, if they attack us, I don't think we have a very good CB anymore. So it's both locking in a good CB and locking in them in as a co-belligerent, because otherwise it's minus 66% war score cost, or plus 66% war score cost. And so you really can't take a lot of stuff. And this is why we're trying to specifically jockey for particular wars. We also will be just straight decking on Morocco as soon as the truce is up, but we have 5 years on this, and so there's quite some time, and so I think we're just going to look to chill for 5 years if they let us. Okay, so with Algeria annexed, we have some decision-making to kind of consider with these markets. I don't think we're going to pull the trigger just yet, because our maritime presence gets jacked up when we annex the Vassal, so our proximity is all looking bad. But what we're thinking of is that, do we want to delete a market? Do we want to keep several small markets? Deleting Valencia eventually for just Tortosa being a lot bigger, because this Tortosa is just way too small. Do we want to kind of... I'm thinking what we want to do is, at the very least, probably move the Algeria market. I just don't know exactly to where. Usually you kind of want a big-ish clearing, and I think that what we'll do is we'll probably move it to either Tahert, because this is kind of flatland plateau, decent enough clearing, can propagate reasonably well. We lose out on being able to propagate this way, but okay. And then this is another consideration, Al-Qadra, but do these kind of harbor capacity cooperate? And the answer is not really. So we won't really be able to get high control to this area that we are kind of thinking of as big open clearing. And it's like, okay, well, we can move it even further down. We can move it over towards this way. We could put it in Mascara maybe, which is probably an okay shout. Then the Carthage market gets to be a lot bigger, but if we move it to Mascara, I don't think we're doing this Almeria like half a market business. And so if it's in Mascara, then we're going to have kind of this be our open-ended zone. Down here, this is just going to be resources that kind of feed our industries. And okay, another consideration is, okay, where are the pops? And there's a lot around Mascara. And so Mascara is looking pretty good. Whatever we do, I think we're not keeping Algeria as its own market, because I don't like what it's kind of doing to the Carthage market here. If this is going to be our primary market, I would like it to be getting some of these resources out to the side, and having this kind of fuel the market, even though there will have slightly less market access. 77% is not like a low amount to be having on the edge of a market, especially because we are going to be picking up the next level of road sometime soon. I don't think it's necessarily that important. So that's kind of what we're considering here. Do we put it here, Al-Khaldra? Do we put it in Tahert? Or do we put it in Mascara? And do we decide to keep the Almeria market or not, to be fair? Not that big a clearing, not that nice a clearing. We do have like kind of grassland there. We have like farmland here, but then it's stepping on the Sevilla market too much. And then once we get up here, now we're talking about Valencia and also this market over here. By the way, the reason we like Tortosa here has to do with the river, because rivers propagate pretty well. There's no rivers in North Africa over here, so we don't have to consider it for these. But that's why we want the river there in Tortosa. And so either way, I think we're deleting the Almeria market, and maybe we could just rip the band-aid off now, because that is going to make resolving the Sevilla market and the Algeria market a lot easier. And so why don't we do that, actually? No matter what, I think we're deleting this market. I don't think there's enough game to this market to really be that nice. I mean, we do have like we don't even have that much pop there. It's just kind of Almeria by itself. There's a lot of pop in Granada, but that's kind of it. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's because they have slave centers and we just like shipped them a ton of slaves. So we could even delete slave centers if we see any in there. Wow, the scrolly doesn't scroll to the top. But what we will do is we will come in here. We will right click here, and we will click Destroy Market, which unfortunately does cost 5 stab. It's not the worst, but it is what it is. And then the Sevilla market gets a lot bigger, the Valencia market gets bigger, and the Algeria market gets quite a bit bigger as well. And so overall, I do like this, especially because we're coming into the next age, like really soon here, where at age 5 we're going to get modern roads. And we might not necessarily get it like at the start of the game, but this is still on kind of our radar as one of the premier techs we want to research very, very quickly. If we get Scientific Revolution first, this is probably the very first tech that we go for. The poor Mamluks are moving their capital to Hims, which is just adjacent to like 5 locations. Is there even anything? I guess there's a lot of pops here. There's like kind of something going on, but like, brother, they're just ratting out of the Nile. They're like, yeah, dog, well, that'll be a no for me, dog. We don't want any part of this Nile no mo. They're gonna head on over to the Levant, you know, kind of in their death throes here, as it were. So we decide on Mascara. I'm not 100% sure. It feels like it's maybe slightly too far to the right, or to the left rather, but I do think that this is kind of like one of the more open kind of clearings that we're going to have here. And it's right in between this clearing and this clearing, and it's a little bit down south, and so it'll touch these kind of lower areas a little bit better. I'm not exactly sure if it's best, but it's also right next to the kind of harbor that we have coming in. So either we're in Algeria where the harbor's good, or we're here where the harbor's good. And the harbor's also going to be good for like a kind of a stretch of a few locations. I don't feel like good about this market, but I do think this might be like the best we could do here. And we are going to get to see the way that it shifts on over here, freeing up some locations to go into the market for specifically Carthage. Very importantly is this province mostly going over where we have a lot of things that are using the iron and the alum. This is kind of something that we wanted specifically to feed tools into the Carthage market. And also, we are going to get decent market access kind of in the interior down here a little bit by moving it inland one. It's really nice on an estuary of a river, but there's no river here. So, like, on the coast is nice on the river for something like Tortosa. But here, moving it inland, I think, isn't too bad. I think it does make it cost more to trade, but we're only one location inland, and I don't think that there's some sort of special mechanic to make that worse, and we stretch into kind of like some of these deeper locations a little bit better on the market access. Not that we're planning on building a bunch down there anyways, but I think... yeah, I think this is probably the best we can do here. Really don't like how small the Sevilla market is, but we don't want to delete the Valencia market yet until we get the Tortosa market. But once we get the Tortosa market, then Valencia market going away makes the Sevilla market quite a bit bigger. And also, we could even consider deleting the Lisbon market, which I kind of like if we move Bourgeot to Valladolid, which I think is kind of an okay location for it. I'm not 100% sure if this deletion is good or not. Also, some awkward things going on with the markets, with Burgundy having 2 tiny markets and our subject of Papal States having 1 market up here. Nuremberg's doing pretty nice here. And we don't like this, though. We don't like it when this happens, which is a reason for us to take Praha, because we don't like the super isolated markets, because it makes the AI, your subjects, very likely to create their own markets, and we can't have that type of, liberty here. But I guess a little bit of a point of emphasis is this is our subject in terms of controlling this. This is our subject. But other than that, we're controlling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, not controlling this one, it's our subject, 13, 14, we're controlling 14 markets kind of in the Mediterranean here, so it has been quite a bit of management in terms of trying to set things up and really kind of radiating out from the capital, where we really care what's going on in the capital. We don't care really that much what's going on in Lisbon, although we do have a decent control here, which is quite nice. The proximity here is up to 57, and so the proximity just overall is feeling pretty good, and this is before we get the next tier of roads, which is really going to help for kind of this pushing stuff to Castile, as well as we might get to a point where Naples, getting to this side, is faster overland than going all the way around here. And so just pushing through Naples all the way to kind of the old capital of Venice might be a little bit faster once we have the next tier of roads. Alright, so we pip the next stage, and we do have a bit of a choice. This, I think, is probably the age with, up to this point, the strongest military focus, where there is a ton of stuff that's good. There's discipline 5%. There is, I assume this gives absolutism trend or something like this, and that's why it's, because otherwise it's just strictly bad. I don't know what that's about. Artillery power, which is nice. Manpower, which would be nice for us right now. Army maintenance, which decreases the amount of manpower you need. And infantry power. So really overall just incredibly strong. And even corvettes. Naval damage taken minus 10% of all the ages. This has some of the best military modifiers, but all the techs are really good. In particular, we really want 25 subject opinion, but I don't think that this quite cuts it. It's interesting that state propaganda minus 20% antagonism and also formal diplomacy, diplo rep. If we were still in some type of mode where we actually cared that much about preventing antagonism, this would actually be quite a bit. But as it stands, we're kind of turning a corner, and we're just looking to maneuver the antagonism rather than prevent it. As much as staying low antagonism has its own fun, the trade capacity is kind of, it's moderately good. Extra income from colonial subjects, 10%. They don't really ship you that much income anyway. They give you 2% of their income, so this is just kind of a weak modifier. And so Diplo kind of, maybe this is the worst age for Diplo overall, although 25 subject opinion, we are currently, it's warping the way that we're playing considerably. Us seeking out the 25 subject opinion we have here and here, or 35 rather. And then we have admin, which mainly about the army initiatives, kind of whatever, maybe worth researching. Pop conversion speed we actively don't want, but this is it. This is mainly it. Currently we have about 67% proximity cost reduction, And so what this represents is like 25% decrease in proximity cost, although proximity cost reduction percentage kind of in some sort of sense falls off as you get higher level roads. But since we do stuff over naval, this actually can matter quite a bit. So in terms of looking at kind of the segment between here and here, for example, this costs 6. The amount of reduction we have currently is going to be 35%. So an additional 10% is kind of nice. That's one of our more expensive segments. We have other segments that are going to get reduced from 3.5 to this kind of lower number here. 2.27, and this is going to be a 35% reduction, so an additional 10% would be kind of nice here. And then kind of just taking a look here, we have a 15 flat reduced to 7.4, a little bit over 50%, and that's with the farmlands kind of hurting things. And so I do think that this will be really good. We are reaching the point where naval is starting to fall off, though, because we're actually going to get a ton of like control inland here as a result of this, because this is going to go up to like 70 if we get this, because we're reducing it by like the cost by about 25%. We're having to spend about 40 to get here, and so okay, very, very strong, especially the more of it you stack. And I do think, if I'm not mistaken, we don't want to click through anything, but in the Age of Absolutism, I think there's another 10%. So really, we would be reducing our costs by like 50%, and this is kind of a big deal. And so kind of inclined to maybe do this. We have a reason for not doing this, but I think for the most part, for most of the remaining kind of phase of the game, this is going to be a little bit better. We see monthly development kind of nice as well. Actually, really do like development. I like development more than development is good, but it's also like kind of late in the game. Colonial migration's kind of whatever at this point. We're not colonizing it as much as we could if we wanted to. Diplo capacity is kind of whatever. Bank interest also whatever. Monthly control, not that strong a modifier, maybe worth researching. Estate satisfaction equilibrium, very nice. And then max literacy, also very nice. And so I think we're going to go with administrative focus and kind of take that off. We also have the Columbian Exchange opening on up just at the very start, which is really nice that this pops immediately because we will be able to spread New World goods like Chile in various locations. And you can see we can, well, we don't want to spread to Alaska. Can we spread it to Italy? Yeah, we could spread it to Italy if we want. And Chiles are going to be extraordinarily profitable. We're going to have a lot of really profitable opportunities. And we are going to be able to replace stuff specifically near the capital, stuff like olives or what have you, kind of the worst food situations or resources, and specifically in really high pop areas as well. We can do a lot of stuff. We can also do tobacco. I think those are the big ones. And then we could also spread an old world good. I don't think that... Can we move sugar or rice into... Yeah, no, we have to move it to the New World. I was thinking, like, maybe we can kind of do some of this. No. We're hoping that our subjects... We haven't really noticed how much the subjects are good at doing this, the colonies specifically. And we're hoping that they do a little bit of this. Also, we noticed this guy... This guy was sneaking about. He was a vassal of ours, so we just released him because we're never going to integrate him ever. We would prefer him as a march, but whatever. Eventually, we could have our subject just eat him, so we did that type of thing. So the Columbian Exchange is going to be nice and interesting. We also have the golden era for piracy. To be honest, I don't know the situation all that well, and so that'll be something that we maybe play with, and maybe we could even start a pirate nation and play as a pirate nation and have like a branch split off. But we have a very strange world for that type of thing because we have very clearly very strong setup here. So that's kind of what we have coming on up in terms of flavor here. Hey, just noticed this too. We also hit 2 million ducats, so it is increasing behind the scenes. I mean, we can't see it, but because there's no decimals, so it's like impossible to, or not impossible. I mean, we can guess, we could take notes, but we are gaining on up to 2 million ducats. In my head, I kind of wanted to go for like 1 billion, but I just don't think that is possible because currently, as it stands, you kind of stall out really, really hard. I suppose we are going to be getting, I think, level 3 manufactories coming on up in the age of absolutism. Yeah, like the level 3 firearms manufacturers here. And this maybe is enough to kind of establish what we need in order to kind of step on up. We see that just looking at the Fine Cloth Workshop here, 0.8 into 0.6, and here we see 2.4 into 2, which is a big jump. That is a very big... Oh, no, wait. Yeah. We see 0.8, into 0.6 versus 2.4 into 2. That is a very large jump in terms of production. The real issue is that we just aren't going to have extra demand for this type of stuff, so the price is just going to collapse really, really low. And I don't know how we can really create a whole lot more demand. As it stands, I think our fine cloth is already cheap. It's already close to 50% price, and it's just going to go lower and lower. And so the margin that we'll actually get off of these buildings is not going to be enough for us to really get an enormous economy unless we did something like stole all the Chinese pops or something like this. In terms of growing the economy as much as possible, we can maybe do like 100 million if we play to the end date or something like this. I don't know if we could swing 1 billion. That would be kind of a big ask, unless there's scaling consumption. Or we could figure out some other way to just spend money faster. Or get more stimulus somehow. The thing is, we have to save money while simultaneously spending money, although our army maintenance should be a little bit lower here. Anyways, I think we're going to conclude the episode here. A little bit more of a quiet episode. We are kind of managing our economy, trying to grow the economy, trying to rebuild, trying to section out stuff, and kind of show some of our thinking behind how we're sectioning out, how we're expanding this type of stuff, because we hadn't really talked about that in a while. We have a whole ton of subjects. Here's like the diplomacy, or this is the diplomacy map mode. You can see all the subjects we have, kind of a whole lot. We are integrating 3 or 4 of them right now, and this is going to be kind of where we are. I think that we are going to probably stop taking subjects for the most part in high amounts unless they are strategic in nature, like Cornwall up here for the claims, or like Transylvania for the claims here. We're going to stop just taking subjects just to integrate it, and again, as we've talked about earlier in this episode, try and make use of integrate area that is going to be coming up at this age. Let's take a look at, I think it's better integration is the name of the tech, which is going to allow us to integrate the entire area. And so this is a pretty big one coming on up. Rule of Sufet's also going to be pretty nice, and so we do have a lot that will be coming up in terms of the tech tree, all this type of stuff, but we will save that for next episode. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, do the YouTube algorithm thing. If you want to support the channel, a really good way of doing it, if you've been following this run, you've already heard this, but using our code on the official web store. No, why are you stop integrating? Using our code Generalist in all caps on the official web store. Really good way to do this. Support the channel. Support the loyalists. Anyways, bye-bye now. Have a good one.